ready?
Start it off.
Let's get right into
Terry
it.
Rozier. All right. So, as we know, the Celtics, as Marv had predicted, they are what you call...
They're watching Double
finished.
M right now.
They're finished.
Yeah.
Okay, so Terry Rozier has some interesting comments that he had on First Take and on Get Up. So those are two really well-known sports shows that he took part in an interview. And he said things like, I sacrificed my talent, and he kind of seemed a little salty, but he didn't want to throw Kyrie and Gordon Hayward underneath the bus, but he did, you know? And the comments that he made, I feel as though he should never made them. It wasn't his place, because what did you do to change the outcome of how the Celtics, you know, ended this playoff?
Right.
I'm 50-50 on everything that Rozier had to say, because it comes from a place where him, just like a lot of the other guys on the team, they felt entitled to get everything they wanted, you know, especially coming off of the previous season where these guys led this team all the way to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. There was no Kyrie in the picture. There was no Gordon Hayward in the picture. So guys like Rozier, Tatum, Brown, they kind of felt entitled coming into the season that they earned something. They earned big-time minutes. They earned to have the ball in their hand. So with him saying, you know, he felt like he had to sacrifice, he gave up a lot, that's any player who feels like they should have the ball, they should be making plays, they should be a star player, they're going to feel that way. At the same time, Terry Rozier, on this current team or this previous 2018-19 team, he's the backup point guard to Kyrie Irving. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You coming into the season, you know the deal. You're Kyrie Irving's backup. You're the backup point guard on the team. And then he made another comment like when Kyrie Irving came out and said before the season to the season ticket holders that, you know, if they'd have me, I'd love to be back, sign here in the summer. He said after Kyrie made that statement, everything really changed for him.
He felt different.
Duh, everything going to change for you? That's Kyrie Irving. You're Terry Rozier.
That
Kyrie
means
Irving.
You basically got the boot.
Yeah, I mean, not that you got the boot, but you're definitely taking a backseat not only this season, but of course, if Kyrie wants to resign in Boston for years to come, you probably don't have a place on this team as the star point guard that you probably envision yourself as. So for him to say that, know your role, know your place. At the same time, a lot of the things he said comes from a place where, like we said on episode 14, Brad Stevens and the coaching staff didn't really set the tone for this team coming into the season out of training camp, practice, whatever, where guys like Terry Rozier didn't know their place, didn't know their role on this team. So now you got guys like Rozier speaking out. Who knows what Brown and Tatum are saying to people? They're not on big shows like First Take and Get Up talking, but these guys probably all feel the same way, that they had to sacrifice. They didn't get everything they wanted, all the shots, all the minutes, all the touches they got. That's on the coaching staff to come into the season and say, look, there are your roles, and here's what you're going to be for this team. If that's not set in stone, then you have players who feel like they earned everything in the world, feeling the way they do.
Right.
That's just how I took it from both sides. I kind of hear what Rozier's feeling as a player, but at the same time, what you were for this team, you have to know your role. And that wasn't given out by Coach Stevens.
I agree.
So, excuse me. So Rozier's facing like a lot of backlash right now for everything that he's saying. You know, mainly the clip that gets tossed around is, you know, the question mark: if the team were to be the same, would you want to stay? And he said, no, I think I'd have to go. And,
got a damn nerve.
And my thing is, watching the whole interview, I have no problem with anything Terry Rozier said, and here's why. One, this didn't happen during the middle of the season. Terry accepted his role. He didn't play well. We understand that. We've spoken about it and everything in that nature. But unlike the leaders of the team, Kyrie Irving stuff, who was always putting down the young guys, even used Terry Rozier's names in interviews with Rachel Nichols. Terry Rozier stayed professional throughout the whole year. Kept quiet how he felt. He never backlashed the team. He always stayed calm. Now that the season's over, Terry understands, hey, this is my last probably opportunity where I can you know, a team's going to want me to be a starting point guard. I need to go out there in these networks that if ESPN's giving me a platform to go speak my piece and let them know, hey, guys, I'm not just a point guard that scores 7 points per game. I can do a lot more. You saw what I did the year before. I got put in a role where it put me in a different situation. He's vouching for himself right now. Which is what Terry Rozier is doing. Teams are going to have to look at him and see what he can do. And I think that's what he's doing. Another thing that came up to mind when I watched that whole interview is, like Mike said, Brad Stevens.
Yep.
Coaching.
Rozier's not, I'm telling you guys right now, Rozier is not the only one who feels this way.
Absolutely
And
not.
he said in
Absolutely
the
not.
interview too, he said the things that went on in practice and that were talked about in practice didn't happen on the court. It didn't happen during the game.
Bad.
And that right there is a problem. And if the players come out and they're saying that, look, what we practice and what we talked about never gets reflected on the court, that right there speaks to the coaching not doing their job. Why are you not reiterating this?
It's really
plan
bad.
that you had in practice.
I agree with you 100%. He said, look, there was times in practice where coach has something set up for an A team and the B team. And then when the game happened, it just wouldn't go like that. Guys didn't know what they were doing. Then he also brought up how, you know, Gordon Hayward, when he would come into the game, it was the Gordon Hayward show. The coach would set up
Stevens' fault.
Would set up plays for Gordon Hayward. And we remember during the season, Hayward was really the point guard of that second team, right? He was the one who had the ball in his hand. He was the one. And there were some games he played all right. And so it was like, oh my God, could Gordon Hayward be a point forward? But not acknowledging now that we hear Rozier's piece. It's like, wow, this is another thing that really messed up the team. Gordon Hayward, guys making $30 million, is scoring 10 points a game. He's not playing well. Then you got Jaylen Brown, you got Tatum, you got Rozier. These guys who did well without him say, now we got to take a back. Okay, it's one thing to take a backseat to Kyrie. We get what he did.
But not a half crippled.
Now we got to take a backseat to a man that you shouldn't even been starting to begin with, who probably shouldn't have played the first month or two in the season because he wasn't right. Yeah. So all of that mentally affected the Boston Celtics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the way I look at it is like it's an umbrella where, you know, the coach is holding that umbrella. And if you're a star player in this league, obviously you could go above and beyond the coach. But if you're kind of a role player, not really leading the team, you're under that umbrella. And what the coach says necessarily goes. It's the coach's team. Yes, you have star players, all-time great players who, you know, no matter what the coach says, it could be, give me the ball, I'm going to handle things. Terry Rozier is not that. We all know that. Everybody can agree with that. Like you just said, Marv, Kyrie Irving's one thing. Has he earned that with the Celtics? That's still a debate. It may not even matter anymore. But Gordon Hayward should have never been given the amount of opportunities he was given. But
he's improved himself too.
Brad Stevens ultimately felt from day one Gordon Hayward for some reason deserved the world. A starting spot, 20 almost 30, what was he playing in the start of the season? Probably like 25, 30 minutes a game. Right. Brad Stevens gave him everything for a guy coming back from injury. And that's only a little bit of the issue where Gordon Hayward didn't necessarily deserve that, and that's something that Terry Rozier kind of talked about. Right. But it still goes back to the fact that if guys don't know their role, if they don't understand what real sacrifice is, because at the end of the day, yes, Kyrie Irving, especially Kyrie Irving, coming back, you're going to have to sacrifice Terry Rozier. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're the backup point guard on this team. You're going to have to sacrifice. If that mentality isn't kind of built into you from your coach, you're going to have the same feelings and sentiments that you have now that, well, I had to sacrifice so much and my talents didn't get, you know, used as best as possible. I think back to, you know, Doc Rivers with the team with Pierce and Garnett and Ray Allen, and then a couple years later, Rondo started to develop. The teams have issues like that where there's multiple guys who probably feel like they deserve something. If you are not a coach who can really handle that and say, look, this is what we expect you to give to the team. This is your role. This is what we want you to provide. Players are just going to be all over the place because they all making millions and millions of dollars feel like they deserve something.
And he mentioned that. He's saying that there's some guys who already got paid, some guys who want to get paid. But another thing that I want to bring up before we move on is Terry Rozier mentions dealing with a lot of attitude. Now, who do you guys think, or what he was referring to when he says that he was dealing with a lot of these attitudes? Because obviously what went on in practice wasn't going on the court, and then you have him admitting to basically, being put in the back seat and being in the shadow of Kyrie Irving. Like, what attitudes could he have possibly be dealing with from what players? Because I feel like he was referring to somebody, but he didn't want to say names.
What he's saying is, like, I'm really starting to think it was Kyrie versus the world in that locker room. Because you got to understand, Tatum and Brown, especially those two, because during the summer we heard a lot from Tatum and Brown. They believed this was it. This was their summer, that they were going to be scoring 20 points per game. They were going to take that next step into stardom. That's what Tatum and Brown went into the season thinking after going through the Eastern Conference. So you have those two guys already feeling like they're going to become stars. You have Rozier, who led the team into the playoffs because he was the point guard. He got the Scary Terry name. He was the fan favorite of the team. So he got a piece of that too. Then you had Kyrie Irving. And you're starting to hear more and more stories about how Kyrie didn't pretty much ignored Brad Stevens' system and did what he wanted to do with Kyrie. And then we see how he spoke about the younger guys and he did this. So I feel like a lot of this, it was this clash, and they all have respect for each other. I don't think there was any bad blood. But when it came to on the court, there was issues there, and there was no one in the team, in the coaching staff, that was big enough to step up and put an end to it. Horford's too soft. I mean, he's a good guy, but he's not going to really do anything about that. Gordon Hayward, he making $30 million, so he's on the sideline eating his chicken, not saying the damn word. Kyrie's the star, and he's getting star treatment.
And I don't want to kind of turn this back into, it's Kyrie or Kyrie's fault or anything like that, but I do want to mention that earlier in the season, take away, Kyrie said a lot of wild stuff to the media. We all can agree on that. But earlier in the season, Kyrie did come out in one of those post-game interviews after a loss and said something along the lines of, maybe this team needs veteran leadership or a veteran presence on the team. And a lot of people took that and felt a certain type of way because why is Kyrie saying that? They don't need a veteran leader. He's the veteran leader. Or they have Horford, who's a veteran. People kind of felt a certain type of way that Kyrie said that. And I never once felt that Kyrie was coming at, Horford or anything. I actually agreed with him. This team, not only from a player standpoint that they need like an old, like Vince Carter or somebody on the bench, but I still believe from the coaching standpoint, next to Brad Stevens, they needed a veteran player. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but this team probably missed Walter McCarty, who was an assistant coach on the team when they were successful. A veteran player who's been in the league, who's seen everything, could kind of understand.
That's a good point.
Walter McCarty was probably a key presence on the team, especially years before, because he wasn't a part of the Kyrie Gordon Hayward era. He was there with the Avery Bradleys and the Jerebkos and Crowders and Olynyk's. Walter McCarty's probably a key presence on this team, and that's what this team needs.
Let's take it to the comments before we move on to our next topic. What is everyone over there saying?
So we got some comments here. Sam saying Terry feels slighted, and rightfully so. Danny P says, why does Rozier deserve everything? Tatum, Brown, Horford, all were better than him last year. And Rozier acting like he did something so amazing that he is making so many sacrifices.
We talked about that before on the previous show. We said something about Rozier. We said, even though he fell back up to Kyrie, when he was on the court with those few minutes he had, he wasn't necessarily doing anything with those minutes. And we brought that up on a previous show, and we said that. And one of y'all said, somebody said something disrespectful.
Let's not get it twisted. Let's not get it twisted. Let's not get it twisted. All this Kyrie,
going with the comments.
Terry, hold on one second. Terry Rozier, let's not get it twisted. Terry Rozier had a bad season. I know the locker room stuff, coaching stuff, whatever the case is. Terry Rozier had a bad season, and for him, in a sense, to say I deserve this or my talents got suppressed, he had a bad season. He got a decent amount of minutes, and he didn't perform well. Even if you're a guy who believes you're a star point guard, I personally believe Terry Rozier had a bad season. I can't even talk. Even games where Kyrie sat out, especially towards the end of the season, when Terry Rozier got chances to start and be the scary Terry or whatever they want to call him, he still played bad. And don't tell me my head is twisted because I had to sacrifice so much. You're on the court, you're dribbling the basketball, the lights are on. You've been in this position before, and he still didn't show up in a lot of opportunities that were presented in front of him. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
Terry Rozier had a bad season.